There are moments when silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. When someone speaks in anger, stay quiet. Words said back can wound deeper than silence ever could. When gossip fills the room, stay still. Truth never needs noise. When envy speaks of your success, let your results speak louder. Silence protects your peace, shields your power, and speaks volumes where noise only proves insecurity. Not every battle needs words. Some are won by saying nothing at all. When anger fills a room, it does more than raise voices. It clouds judgment, twists perception, and creates wounds that often outlast the moment itself. People believe that responding in anger is a show of strength, a sign that they will not tolerate disrespect or unfairness. But in reality, it is the very thing that gives control to the other person. When you speak in the heat of anger, your words are no longer guided by clarity or logic. They are born from emotion, and emotion is rarely loyal to wisdom. The mind, under the influence of anger, exaggerates threats, misinterprets intent, and fuels a narrative of conflict, convincing you that a quick retort or cutting remark will bring closure. Instead, it escalates the situation, inviting more chaos, more hurt, and more regret. Silence in such a moment does not mean surrender, it means discipline. It means holding your power instead of scattering it across a battlefield where only pride is fighting. Silence creates space. Space for you to breathe, to assess, and to choose a response that serves you instead of sabotaging you. It is not passive, it is active control, the kind of restraint that transforms a potentially explosive confrontation into an opportunity for observation and understanding. When you remain silent, you allow the other person to reveal more than they intended, their emotional state, their insecurities, their patterns of reaction, while you remain untangled from the chaos they are trying to pull you into. Consider how quickly anger fades when it is not fueled by opposition. A fire dies without oxygen, and conflict dies without constant verbal fuel. People expect retaliation when they provoke. They expect sharp words when they insult. They expect to be met with the same heat they bring. But when you meet anger with stillness, you take away its rhythm. The person may shout, they may accuse, they may even try to humiliate, but without your participation, their energy has nowhere to go. They are left confronting themselves, often revealing far more about their inner turmoil than they planned, while you stand unshaken. Silence also allows time for emotional intelligence to take the lead. It gives the body time to calm its physiological response, the racing heartbeat, the shallow breathing, the adrenaline surge that makes harsh words feel satisfying in the moment but regrettable later. Neuroscience shows that anger activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, reducing activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational decision-making. Remaining silent keeps you from making decisions when your brain is least capable of making wise ones. It gives your nervous system a chance to reset, your thoughts a chance to realign, and your words a chance to be shaped by intention instead of impulse. Moreover, silence shifts the dynamic of power in any confrontation. The one who loses control of their emotions appears weaker, no matter how loud they become. The one who remains composed, grounded, and calm appears unshakable, even when provoked. Silence is not about bottling emotions. It is about processing them privately, not publicly, until you can decide what truly deserves to be said, and whether it needs to be said at all. Some conflicts are not worth engaging in, some accusations not worth addressing, and some people not worth granting access to your energy. By choosing silence, you choose yourself over the need to win a fleeting argument. Gossip thrives on attention. It feeds on the willingness of people to listen, react, and pass it on. When you engage with it, whether by adding your own thoughts, laughing at someone else's expense, or simply listening without objection, you silently endorse it. Gossip does more than damage reputations. It erodes trust, creates divisions, and plants seeds of insecurity between people. It has a way of coming back to the very person who spreads it, exposing their lack of integrity and discipline. But more importantly, it exposes the ones who sit quietly and indulge in it, for silence in that context can imply agreement. Yet there is another kind of silence, one that is intentional and principled, not the silence of complicity, but the silence of withdrawal. When you choose to remain silent in the presence of gossip, you make a decision not to give energy to what is beneath you. You choose not to participate in the kind of conversation that cheapens others and stains your own character. People often gossip because it gives them a temporary sense of superiority, as if by pointing out the flaws of someone else, they can hide their own. But gossip is never about the person being discussed. It is a mirror reflecting the insecurities of the one who speaks. Silence in that moment is not weakness, it is self-protection. It is a refusal to let your energy and reputation be tied to something that carries no value. Moreover, silence disrupts the momentum of gossip. Words are contagious. Once one person adds fuel, others feel invited to contribute, turning what may have been a small comment into a full narrative of judgment, speculation, and exaggeration. But when silence enters the space, it creates discomfort. It makes people aware of their own words. It forces them to hear the weight of what they are saying, no longer cushioned by the laughter or agreement of others. Silence holds up a mirror without judgment, but with undeniable clarity. It says without words that this conversation is not worthy of engagement. Another reason to remain silent is that gossip is often built on fragments of truth, twisted with assumption. Stories change as they pass from one person to another, shaped by bias, jealousy, or the thrill of adding drama. By listening or responding, you not only risk spreading falsehood, but also risk being misrepresented yourself. People might later say, "They said it too," or "They agreed with me," pulling you into a narrative that was never yours to begin with. Silence keeps you free of that. It leaves no words for anyone to twist. It ensures that your name is never used to justify harm done to someone else. Psychologically, engaging in gossip also impacts your own mindset more than you realize. The more you discuss others negatively, the more your thoughts align with negativity. The mind becomes conditioned to notice flaws, to criticize, to judge, and to assume the worst in people. Silence protects you from this slow shift in perspective. It allows you to remain focused on your own growth rather than other people's mistakes. It creates mental space for meaningful conversation, conversations that build, not conversations that break. There is also a quiet kind of strength in being the person who does not entertain gossip. People notice it even if they don't say so. They may think twice before speaking ill of someone in front of you. They may even trust you more, sensing that if you refuse to speak about others, you will also refuse to let their secrets slip. Trust is rare, and the way you handle gossip determines whether people see you as a source of integrity or a source of risk. Silence, in this context, becomes a shield, not only protecting your character but signaling to the world that your words are not cheap, and your presence is not a place for small talk at the expense of someone else's dignity. When someone disrespects you, the natural instinct is to respond, to defend yourself, to prove that you will not be walked over. Yet the truth is, responding often gives the disrespect more weight than it deserves. It validates the act by showing that it has power over you, that it can disturb your inner balance and trigger a reaction. Disrespect is not a reflection of your worth, it is a reflection of the other person's character, their emotional state, and often their own insecurities. Meeting it with silence is not a sign of weakness, but of control, a refusal to hand over your peace to someone who has not earned it. Disrespect thrives on attention because it seeks to provoke. It is often a test, a way to gauge whether you will stoop to the same level, whether you will allow anger to dictate your response, or whether you will maintain composure and let the moment pass without consequence. People who show disrespect are often seeking validation through conflict. They want to see you react so they can feel justified in their behavior. They want you to mirror their emotional chaos so they can say, "See, you're no better than me." Silence denies them that satisfaction. It tells them, without a word, that their behavior is beneath acknowledgement, that you refuse to be drawn into a battle that diminishes your dignity. Silence also provides you with clarity. When disrespected emotions surge, anger, hurt, even confusion, clouding your ability to think with reason. Words spoken in that state are rarely wise. They are sharp, defensive, and often regrettable. Silence, however, creates space between the feeling and the action. It allows the storm to settle so that when you do decide how to handle the situation, if you choose to at all, it is done with intention rather than impulse. It gives you control not just of the situation, but of yourself, which is far more powerful than any sharp reply. Another aspect to consider is how silence exposes the person who disrespects you. When there is no reaction, no argument, no return of negativity, their behavior stands alone, unjustified and unprovoked. Others who witness it can see it clearly for what it is, without the distraction of a verbal clash. The disrespect reflects back entirely on them, highlighting their lack of composure, their lack of maturity, and their lack of control. Silence, in this way, is not passive. It is a form of social and psychological mirror that forces the offender to face their own conduct. Moreover, not all disrespect is worth confronting. Some is rooted in ignorance, some in insecurity, and some in a desire to manipulate your emotions. When you respond to every slight, every rude comment, every display of arrogance, you end up giving pieces of your energy to people who do not deserve it. Silence is the way you draw the line. It says, without saying, this does not touch me, this does not define me, and this is not worth my time. It allows you to walk away with your peace intact while the one who tried to disturb it is left to sit with their own actions. On a deeper level, silence in moments of disrespect is an investment in self-respect. It shows that you value your emotional state too much to let someone else dictate it. It shows that you understand the difference between reaction and response, between defending yourself and needing no defense because you know your worth. In many ways, silence is louder than words. It says, you cannot shake me, without a single sound. It turns the focus inward, not on what someone said to you, but on how you choose to carry yourself despite it. Envy has a way of revealing itself through subtle remarks, forced smiles, or backhanded compliments that seem supportive on the surface, but carry an undertone of bitterness. When people envy you, it is rarely about what you have achieved. It is about how your success reflects what they feel they lack. They see in you a version of themselves they wish they could become, and instead of being inspired, they feel threatened. Responding to their envy with words, whether through explanation, justification, or even reassurance, rarely changes their perspective. More often than not, it fuels it, giving them evidence that their opinion matters enough to affect you. Silence, however, robs envy of its power. It denies it the attention it craves and places you firmly above the insecurities that envy tries to project onto you. When you are around envious people, silence becomes a shield. These individuals often look for reasons to criticize your journey, to belittle your accomplishments, or to highlight your mistakes. They want to create a sense of imbalance, a feeling that perhaps you don't deserve what you have or that your success was built on luck rather than effort. Any response you give becomes a thread they can pull, twisting your words to fit their narrative. But silence leaves no thread to unravel. It communicates strength, confidence, and a quiet understanding that your life needs no defense, your success no explanation, and your worth no debate. There is also a psychological layer to envy. It thrives on comparison. Envious people compare their journey to yours, their results to yours, and their identity to yours. The more you engage with them, the more they feel validated in that comparison. They interpret your words, even if meant kindly, as acknowledgement of their perspective. Silence breaks that pattern. It removes you from the comparison altogether, making it clear that you are not playing the same game. Instead of lowering yourself into a dialogue of resentment, you rise above it by letting your achievements speak louder than any explanation you could give. Silence also prevents unnecessary conflict. Envious people often provoke with subtle digs or disguised criticism, hoping you will respond defensively and reveal insecurity. They want to see cracks in your confidence because it reassures them that their discomfort is justified. Responding, even politely, can sometimes encourage more of these subtle provocations as it shows you are willing to entertain their energy. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to dignify their comments with a reaction, you leave them with nothing to push against. It forces them to confront their own emotions rather than projecting them onto you. Moreover, silence protects your focus. Energy is finite, and every conversation you have carries an emotional cost. Engaging with envy drains that energy, shifting your attention from your own path to someone else's opinion of it. This distraction can slow momentum, feed doubt, and even cause you to second-guess decisions that once felt clear. Choosing silence means choosing to keep your energy aligned with growth rather than conflict. It allows you to channel your thoughts toward what truly matters, your vision, your discipline, and the next step forward, rather than lingering on the negativity of those who cannot celebrate your progress. Silence is also an act of grace. It acknowledges that envy often comes from pain, from feeling unseen, unaccomplished, or unworthy. It recognizes that their reaction says more about their relationship with themselves than about you. By not responding, you avoid deepening that pain with words that may feel like gloating or self-defense. You allow them to sit with their feelings without adding fuel to them. At the same time, you maintain your dignity by refusing to step into a space of negativity where nothing productive can grow. When others doubt you, Their words are rarely about your potential. They are reflections of their own fears, limitations, and beliefs about what is possible. People project their insecurities onto others, often unconsciously, trying to define what you can or cannot do based on what they believe they could or could not do. Responding to doubt with arguments or constant explanations often does little to convince them otherwise. In many cases, it only reinforces their perspective, making them believe you are seeking their approval or validation. Silence, however, sends a different message. It communicates confidence without the need for defense and assurance without the need for applause. Doubt can come in many forms: direct skepticism, subtle remarks, or questions that sound supportive but carry an undertone of disbelief. Are you sure you can handle that? Isn't that too risky? What if it doesn't work out? These statements are often disguised as concern, but they carry a weight that can weaken your resolve if you allow them to. By staying silent, you protect your vision from being dissected by people who cannot see what you see. You refuse to hand over your dreams to be measured by someone else's limited perspective. Your silence tells them that your commitment is not up for debate, that your path is not seeking permission, and that your belief in yourself outweighs their uncertainty. There is also a psychological strength in refusing to explain your plans to those who doubt you. When you explain, you invite judgment. When you defend, you imply that their opinion has enough value to challenge your direction. But when you remain silent, you let your actions become your argument. You allow time and results to speak louder than any justification could. Doubt thrives on discussion. It withers when there is nothing to challenge, no words to dissect, no energy to feed on. Silence becomes a form of quiet rebellion, a way of saying, I don't need to convince you, I only need to continue. Moreover, doubt has a way of planting seeds in your mind. Even when spoken casually, it can echo in your thoughts, making you question yourself during moments of vulnerability. Silence helps you maintain mental clarity by refusing to engage with these projections. It acts as a barrier, keeping external negativity from becoming internal dialogue. Instead of responding to doubt, you turn inward, grounding yourself in discipline, preparation, and the belief that growth comes not from proving people wrong, but from proving yourself right. There is also power in letting your achievements answer the doubt for you. People may dismiss your ideas, criticize your decisions, or underestimate your capabilities, but they cannot argue with results. They cannot deny what they can see with their own eyes. Silence keeps you from wasting time in unnecessary debates and allows you to invest that time in the very work that will render their words meaningless. When the results arrive, those who doubted you will either fall silent themselves or attempt to rewrite their stance, but by then their opinion no longer matters because your reality has already surpassed their expectations. Silence, in this sense, is an act of focus. It keeps you moving forward when doubt tries to pull you sideways. It prevents you from becoming entangled in the emotions, fears, and limitations of others. It preserves your energy for the climb ahead, reminding you that progress is not achieved by arguing with those who cannot see the summit, but by continuing to ascend until you are sta. When situations escalate into unnecessary arguments, silence becomes a powerful tool of self-control. Most arguments are not about discovering truth, but about defending egos, proving superiority, or protecting pride. People often argue not to understand but to win, to have the last word, or to impose their perspective on someone else. Entering such conflicts can pull you into an emotional spiral where clarity disappears and only the need to respond remains. Silence, on the other hand, disrupts this cycle completely. It denies the argument oxygen and shifts the dynamic from emotional reaction to composed detachment, showing that not every battle deserves your voice. Unnecessary arguments rarely lead to resolution. Instead, they drain energy, create resentment, and leave both sides feeling unheard. Words exchanged in the heat of tension are sharp, often exaggerated, and frequently regrettable. The more emotionally charged the conversation, the less rational both parties become, and what began as a minor disagreement can quickly evolve into a full confrontation. Silence prevents this escalation. It serves as a barrier, stopping the emotional chain reaction before it gains momentum. It gives both parties the space to step back, breathe, and recognize the futility of continuing a fight that serves no purpose. There is a deep sense of strength in withholding words when provoked. It may feel unnatural at first, as the instinct to defend oneself or correct a misunderstanding is strong. Yet, responding only to prove a point often shows insecurity rather than confidence. Silence communicates something more powerful. It says, I don't need to prove myself through conflict. It demonstrates mastery of self, control over emotion, and clarity of priorities. People notice this restraint even if they don't comment on it. Over time, they come to see you as someone who cannot be easily rattled, someone who understands the difference between reacting and responding. Silence also reveals the intent of the other person. When you do not respond, their words continue to echo in the space, making their motives more apparent. Are they trying to seek understanding, or are they simply provoking? Are they genuinely curious, or do they want to feel superior? By remaining silent, you remove yourself from the emotional exchange and watch their behavior more clearly, recognizing whether the discussion is worth revisiting later or not at all. In relationships, silence in unnecessary arguments can be the difference between building bridges and burning them. Harsh words spoken in moments of tension can leave lasting scars, even when apologies follow. People tend to remember not only what was said, but how it made them feel. Choosing silence prevents the creation of emotional wounds that might take far longer to heal than the issue itself ever warranted. It shows that you value peace over pride and connection over the fleeting satisfaction of being right. On a personal level, silence preserves mental clarity. Arguments tend to linger in the mind long after they end, replaying in cycles of, I should have said this, or I can't believe they said that. This mental replay wastes energy, keeping you anchored in negativity instead of moving forward. Silence avoids this entirely by removing unnecessary words from the equation. There are no statements to regret, no verbal missteps to analyze, no emotional residue to process, only calm, composed stillness that leaves room for perspective. Finally, silence allows you to save your energy for conversations that truly matter. There will always be discussions that require your voice, times when speaking up is necessary for clarity, boundaries, or justice. But by refusing to engage in petty or meaningless arguments, you preserve the strength of your words for moments where they can create impact rather than conflict. Silence to protect inner peace is a deliberate choice, one that requires awareness of how words, reactions, and unnecessary involvement can disrupt emotional stability. Inner peace is fragile, built from a balance of self-control, clarity, and boundaries. Every time you engage in arguments, gossip, or conflicts that have no real value, you trade a piece of that peace for temporary satisfaction, only to feel unsettled afterward. Silence becomes the shield that guards this balance, allowing you to maintain calm even in environments where chaos is loud and constant. Protecting inner peace through silence begins with recognizing that not every situation requires a response. People often speak from their own stress, fears, or frustrations, projecting emotions that have little to do with you. If you react to every comment or challenge every remark, you invite their storm into your mind. Silence keeps the boundary firm. It says without words that your state of mind is not open for disturbance, that your emotional world is not a playground for external noise. This simple act of restraint keeps negativity from taking root and spreading within you. Silence also helps you process emotions rather than letting them explode outward. In moments of tension, the mind races, the heart quickens, and words are often shaped more by impulse than reason. Speaking under these conditions can lead to regret, misunderstandings, and unnecessary complications. But when you remain silent, you create a pause, a buffer between feeling and expression that allows emotions to settle before action is taken. This pause often reveals that many things do not require a response at all, and those that do can be addressed with calm, measured words rather than sharp reactions. Another way silence protects inner peace is by reducing mental clutter. Words exchanged in haste often lead to more thoughts, more doubts, and more emotional replay. Conversations are revisited in your head. Imagine scenarios of what if I had said this or why did they say that keep looping, and the mind becomes restless. Silence cuts this cycle at its root. When nothing is said, nothing lingers. There are no regrets, no overanalyzed phrases, no mental rehearsals of comebacks. Instead, there is stillness, a space where thoughts can remain clear and focused on what truly matters. The practice of silence also nurtures self-respect. When you choose not to engage in situations that threaten your peace, you are sending a message to yourself. Your well-being is more important than being heard, validated, or proven right. This subtle affirmation reinforces confidence and builds resilience, reminding you that true strength is not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. People often equate silence with passivity, but in reality, it is one of the most active forms of self-care. a conscious decision to value calm over chaos. Furthermore, silence changes how others perceive you. Those who cannot disturb your peace with words or provoke reactions will think twice before trying. They sense that you are not easily pulled into emotional traps, that your composure is not a performance but a practice. Over time, this earns respect, even from those who once tried to shake you, because people instinctively recognize the strength it takes to stay calm when provoked. It marks you as someone grounded, someone who operates from a place of self-possession rather than reactivity. Most importantly, silence creates a sanctuary within. In a world full of noise, opinions, and constant demands for attention, choosing when to speak and when to hold your words becomes essential for mental clarity and emotional balance. Each time you practice it, you reinforce the idea that your peace is not negotiable, that it is not to be traded for arguments, gossip, or validation.